We have four distinguished experts and speakers who will join me now for the roundtable discussion. Unfortunately, due to COVID and the train strikes, Laura Koistermans, who should have represented Liru, cannot be with us. She sends all her apologies, but she just couldn't come finally, so we have to miss her from this discussion. But we are really fortunate because the other speakers are here. So I asked the floor first Birgit Ditkens, who were one of our advisory members in the project foRMAtion, and she is the head of unit of cooperation with European countries within the German Aerospace Center. And we all know that it is not about space research solely, but they are agency of the ministry, right? For research and project management agency. So then I would ask to the floor Marta Agostinho, who was also an advisory board member, and now she is executive director of EU Life. Then Nick Claessens, who is managing director of EARMA, the European Association of Research Managers and Administrators. And last but not least, Sergiu Porstescu, who is consultant on strategic partnerships at the Nicolaitis Simeonu State University of Medicine and Pharmacy in Moldova. So, first and foremost, very warm welcome to all of you. We are just making some technical adjustments. May I also sit here? And first, I would like to introduce yourself, basically, what you are doing in a few words, and how it can be connected to research management or foRMAtion project as such. And here is one mic, and there will be another mic.
Okay, so I can start. First of all, I'm very grateful to be here, and it was really a pleasure for me to accompany this project as an advisory board member. And before I start by introducing myself, I didn't have the chance before to congratulate you to the wonderful experience and it's the wonderful results you have here in your project. So this is really a good and important project. Well, who I am? Well, you heard my name is Birgit Ditkens. I'm working on a project management agency, which is situated at the German Aerospace Center, but please forget about that because we don't have anything to do with aerospace. But we are funding research on behalf of several German ministries, mainly the German Ministry of Education and Research, and in all fields, in all possible research fields. And I'm working in a department or in a division which deals with European international cooperation. So we are supporting the German Ministry of Education and Research in creating and also in implementing their international projects. This includes designing a call, this includes asking for proposals, evaluating the proposals, and then doing the management about the proposal, means giving the money to the researchers, and in the end we have the results on our table and take them up to create new calls. So this is actually the circle of our task we are doing. Besides that, we do also strategic consultation. We develop strategies in international cooperation. We do evaluation of programs, not only our own programs, but also programs of other institutes, of foundations, of ministries. That covers mainly our activities. Yeah, of course, we are very interested in the results of the projects because research managers and administration do not only work in universities, they also work in funding agencies. And even those research managers working in universities are our counterparts in the universities when we ask for input, for calls, for programs, for strategies, for evaluations. So this is really important to have well-trained research managers on the other side of the table to cooperate with that. That's why we're so happy about this project.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. And I will co-opt your words, Birgit, and really congratulate the whole team of the foRMAtion project. There was a very good outcome in terms of the training, in terms of also the dynamics that is produced, and last but not least, focused on a consortium that is based in countries that we do not usually see leading these projects, which I think is also a very important aspect. So my name is Marta Agostinho. I'm the executive director of ULife. ULife is an umbrella organization, an alliance of independent research institutes in the life sciences across Europe. And actually, we do a lot of policy. We are a voice for researchers and for research organizations within the European policy here with the European Commission, etc. But we also are a very big community of practice because we do, as an alliance, develop and help our member institutes. Right now, there are 15 leading institutes in 15 different countries, and we help them being even better institutes. And this is very much related to the heart of this project, actually, because within our 7 working groups, we deal with roughly 200 professionals working together at an international level to develop careers in research, to develop knowledge transfer, to develop training, funding opportunities, etc. So we are talking about research managers in broad sense. But I believe I'm also here in the advisory board because I'm also a professional at the Interface of Science. I'm a founding member of the platform of Interface of Science in Portugal, which is a platform that gathers professionals in these areas to develop our profession. And I think it's really important to mention that as well. Thank you.
Super, thank you, everybody. I'm Nick Claassen. I'm the Managing Director of EARMA, the European Association of Research Managers and Administrators. Very long name. Terminology is an issue as we know it. So we're a European association existing since 1995. We have over 300 research performing organizations involved from across Europe and also a bit outside of that, but very much with a European focus. So our key goals are to, on the one hand, enable best practice exchange, professional development, and on the other hand, also thought leadership about where should the community go in the future. I'm in a very lucky position to be speaking to colleagues from all over about research management, so from all over Europe, and a lot of the same questions keep popping up also that we had here today, being about what is the definition of research management on the one hand, how do we organize training? Well, it's different in my country, but we have similar challenges, but in a different context. So trying to find an answer to that is a very difficult proposition. So what we try to do at the association on the one hand is to create a platform, like a little bit here also, although now it's embedded in a project here, to let people come together and discuss that. On the other hand, also to provide that professional development that we can or link to other professional development opportunities. And then in the end also to look with the stakeholders, how do we move this forward? And in all of this, there is fantastic momentum. You had Stan here in the morning presenting on what the Commission is doing, where Europe is going. We have, I think, some very interesting developments also in Germany, and thank you for also Germany and Hungary in taking the lead in this Action 17. So in the end, the momentum is super, it's great. And also with one of the pilot projects that were mentioned earlier this morning, RM Roadmap. So we at EARMA are coordinating that with HEDFA also, some of the other partners from foRMAtion, Nova. And they're really, it's called RM Roadmap, Research Management Roadmap. Because if you look at the current situation, there are many questions, there are many good people trying to move it forward, but there are so many niches, it's so multi-dimensional, data stewards, research integrity officers, project managers, and so on and so on and so on, so many national contexts, that what we need in the first instance is to define who we are, what is already there, and where are we going. So what we need simply is a plan, is a roadmap. So that's why RM Roadmap is there, and we are really trying to, with everybody, make it a big co-creation exercise, which everybody can buy into from across Europe, to create that plan for the future. How are we getting to a good situation for research management? How are we getting to Are we getting to recognition of the profession, better training, and in return also in a way, what will we offer to policymakers, to stakeholders? What can we do for them? That's a very important message, which Simon there in a moment preempted a little bit. That's what we're trying to find out in the roadmap project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Sergio. For the last 15 years, I was working mainly in international scientific collaboration, but also I have experience of being involved in the EU projects, national, bilateral, and a lot of them. Currently, I'm representing the State University of Medicine and Pharmacy from Moldova. So we are from the eastern part of Eastern Europe, let's say so. Indeed, around 1 year ago, I think I read on Virag's wall on Twitter a post about the project. At that time, I was working with my colleagues to have some source of inspiration for some continuous training modules, mainly for our students, master students and PhD students, because indeed, actually, I think that our constituencies lacks this ecosystem vision, because we would like to have more youngsters involved in research. We would like to have PhD projects, interesting PhD projects. We would like to have a better chance for absorbing FIPI program money funds, but at the same time we cannot leave all this job only to research managers. I think that we need to train, we need to teach also our scientists at least the basics of this job. So when we found out about this tremendous activity already at that time done with foRMAtion project, and we looked on the deliverables. So I contacted Virag, so we started to work on, let's say, adopting and adapting the modules. We just signed a letter for being part of the mentoring scheme, but I think that we will send another one on the educational part as well. And we are getting ready to launch a TOT training inside our institution. We spoke already with our colleagues from Zambezia University, from Cluj, and they would definitely help us in this very important challenge. This is a part of a bigger mission of our institution, so we decided to promote this education through research doctrine, and on the same time, as a medical university is really hard. You need to have a really strong USP to convince a future doctor to become a research administrator. So most of the times we have to hire research administrators from other fields. So we will have also some kind of early career training on board based on the foRMAtion deliverables. So really thank you very much and congratulations for your job. I think that with such a strong consortia, you are from the beginning convicted to be successful, and we are looking forward to be part of the community of practice, because I think that this is really important. Yeah, the context is different, but looking also on your assessment of the situation with research management in Eastern Europe, we found a lot of commonalities. So we have a lot of challenges which are common and are shared among us. So within this community of practice, I think that we will find, so at least we will tackle them together, and this is will speed up the job. Thank you.
So yeah, many thanks for the introductions, and again, congratulations for the partners. I think this cannot be said many times, but coming back to the roundtable discussion, Sergio already spoiled my first question. Nevertheless, I will ask it again from all the speakers. So we have talked a lot about how it works with university students, how it worked, what kind of impact it had, and it also proves that there is relevance for that because it makes the profession appealing. But what do you think about adopting it to other kind of learning environments? Do you see any potential? Do you have any concrete ideas with that regard? I would give the floor first to Marta, and then Birgit.
Thank you. I mean, absolutely. I think one of the strengths of the module and the mentoring program is that it's very flexible, right? So I can imagine already a lot of flexibility You can do it individually online. You have a self-assessment tool. You can enroll as an institution. So there is these two levels: individual, organization level. And it's also, of course, one of the assets is that it's the first ever baccalaureate level training in research management. But I'm imagining in my institutes a lot of PhD program trainings exist where this module could be adapted and used. I don't even think there needs to be so big adaptation, you know. I think we should also emphasize the aspect that is a ready-to-use tool. It doesn't need a lot of adaptation, which I think it can be, can be easier for some organizations. I was thinking about also all these initial training networks that the doctoral networks now that the European Commission also supports. All these kind of trainings. I can imagine researchers looking for careers around science that they don't know how to get training. They could do it online to strengthen their CV. It could be a name tree, even to test if they would eventually like to explore research management.
Full support to what you said. So I also see a lot of possibilities to use the modules in other environments. Yeah, I don't need to repeat what you say. It's so flexible and it's ready to use. So this is really an advantage. Maybe what I can add, of course, in my agency, we also do a lot of in-house trainings for our employees. Most of our employees are coming from started a scientific career and decided for whatever reasons that a research manager and working on a research management agency would be better than working on university as a full-time professor. There are plenty of reasons. But they hardly had contact to the profession of research manager. So we have a lot of in-house trainings. And I believe that your module could be part of it. And so I think this is also an opportunity to train professional research management agencies on these modules and go away from what we do currently now is most learning by doing, which you need to do. You need a lot of experience as a research manager, but using your modules as a starting point and as an opening, as things to open the door to that profession would be really a good opportunity.
Yes, indeed. I think the point there is very important. Learning by doing is very important in the community. That is what is there or what you have to do at the moment to a large degree. So how do we move from a situation where that is the case to a situation where modules such as these move into bachelor's, master's, PhDs, into funding agencies, into the RPOs themselves, into communities that teach them for RPOs, for example, into the university alliances. So I think I don't want to be too specific as I try to look at the big picture, but it's great that you're doing this pioneering work, and your modules and modules such as that long term should get there. But how they get to really scale up, that's what I'm very interested in and what we want to try to do in the roadmap. Or how will we get that to really scale up to get support behind that? And so that's the main thing in my mind, how we do that.
Yes, as I already mentioned, we are thinking about piloting it at the level of the master students, but also within our PhD school. We have around 150 PhD in life sciences. Some of my colleagues looked at the modules and thought that this was the kind of activities that they would like to include in the next twinning projects, for example, under widening, because it seems very the thing that they are missing in the consortia. And also, of course, a little bit adapted and completed for the future PIs, for those who getting to be a PI or head of labs, because this helicopter view is really useful for somebody who is in the transition phase from the researcher's work to an administrator, let's say, to take the responsibility for a team or a larger research infrastructure. So yeah, actually the main things are here. Of course, something can be added in terms of national practices, peculiarities of the funding, local funding agencies, but also some consultations maybe with NCPs in terms of enriching it, taking into consideration the let's say the target calls for each of the country or for each of the constituencies can be also used. Thank you.
Thank you. So what we see is that there is a very broad spectrum where either the module or other outputs can be used, which is, I think, very positive, and it is also it can be also a lesson learned for today for us if you take this message home with you. However, I already mentioned some challenges that we were faced with during the project. So what kind of challenges do you face regarding the adoption and the adaptation of the foRMAtion output, the module or the mentorship program as such? And if you have any recommendations how to overcome them, please also share it with us. Sergio first.
Yeah, in terms of challenges, everything is personal. I think we need to find first of all promoters inside of. If we are speaking, I'm now thinking global but acting locally. So in terms of the institution, it's important to identify those trainers who promote it. In our specific case, I think that we are in a context. So as lower is the percentage of GDP allocated to science, I think that is less attractive the career in research is, in my opinion. So we need to. It's really hard to convince the youngsters to come and do research, and it is even harder to attract research administrators and managers because the competition is really harsh. If you are competing with some international projects or I don't know, big corporations and so on and so forth, it's really hard to have on board well-trained people. And even when you have it, you can lose it very quickly. And for a small country with a small scientific community, this is a challenge. But again, I was looking at your work package dedicated to connection to the labor market, so I become more positive in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking at sort of how can the modules be adopted and what are the issues there? I see a number. One is sort of the making students interested in something that they don't know about, that they don't know exists. That's one thing. Of course, if you offer it as a module in a larger education, that obviously helps, and you can overcome some things there. Then also research management. We're teaching them research management, but we don't really have the definition yet, which in a way is, well, I'm sure there is a definition that was a basis for how you move forward, but there is no fully accepted definition yet. So you're working with something that is reasonably unknown, where you can't really say what it is in a way. So that's a very tricky situation. And the last thing, which I think is most important, is that the buy-in is there. And I mean the buy-in also from what could create game changer mass adoption of something like this is the question we posed earlier, getting into why are policymakers convinced that this is a good thing, that why will somebody who is deciding whether this will be in a master's course or will be at a university or at another educational organization, how do they decide it's worth to have it? And that's the key question. And that's something we need to formulate and answer much better to. We are beginning to do this, and there's steps. And this project is a good step as well. And that case, that business case in efficiency, in supporting researchers, in giving them the time to do research, but also in trust and accountability, this I see when we get our act together in talking to policymakers and showing them this is what you get out of it, then I think a lot of the barriers that you have fall away. Although getting people at the bachelor's level involved is a very difficult thing at this point, I think. Although that's even gives more credit to the project at this moment, because it is not so well known. There is nobody sitting around, I think at 12 or 14, I'm going to become a research administrator or manager or whatever you call it. So that's a big challenge.
Thank you. I would just add that I think the challenge, I mean, looking at the point of the foRMAtion project, is at the what is the entry level for the at the organizations? Where at which level do you present and do you sell the modules or the mentoring? Because I would say that it's like you mentioned, it's obvious for research managers what is the added value, but then how this enters into the system, into the university, who recognizes, and for that maybe it's useful to map what is the needs, what is in there for me, what is in there for my organization that I will want to have this, right? Irrespective of how much advocates of research manager we are or we are not. And I think it's thinking a bit about this strategy of what is in there for an organization and what is the entry level at each organization.
What I think is a challenge also beyond what we've all said is that to bring the idea to the decision makers at universities that a systematic training for research managers is needed, that this is really an added value, because I believe that most people in the decision-making level of universities think that everyone who has ever done a research project knows what research management is about. And this is too short thinking. I don't think I have to explain it in here, but this is in the minds of all the people. And this means doing a kind of marketing of what research manager, of the job of research manager, what it is about, how what are the skills are needed, and all the different skills, all the different knowledge you need to know as a research manager, which is far beyond what happens when you are a researcher in a research project. And putting that in the mind of the people, I think this is a challenge we have, and also an opportunity, because this will really help also to make the systematic training. And once people understand that, they will of course know that we need a training, and that the modules are now available is really an advantage.
Thank you a lot.
If I may just, I think that beside purely the educational part of the project, I think that the findings of the assessment on the perception of research management administration in the countries and in the region in general that was done under foRMAtion, I think that also gives us a lot of hints and a lot of additional information, and a lot of information, I think, as a starting point for the activity of the professional association. Because as we saw in the Eastern Europe, the level of professionalization is even lower than in general in Europe, and maybe professional associations can think of some capacity building activities for that part of Europe. Sorry, I'm a newcomer. Maybe you have already a portfolio, and I'm not aware of to give. So I think that these findings are also very important and can be brought to the attention of the policymakers, and they should understand that in order to, let's say, to obtain something as a result, you need to invest. You need to have an input in order to expect for an output. But politicians are looking at the indicators only as output and outcome, and less at the input. So
yes, so I want to pick up on that, because even in the project RM roadmap, we have a start to this. And so we will offer an online space for all countries in the European zone. And we will also be trying to reach out to all countries to have ambassadors in place, leaders, to start and build such communities. And the idea is also that at a minimum, we take stock of the sort of status of the country, of what the community tissue or network is there or not, and translate that in the first instance to the European Research Area policy, so to the European Commission policy. But on the other hand, also, it's very much the idea that what we developed in the project and the thought leadership, that goes also to saying, okay, in this way you can build your capacity. If you are convinced that the policy making level, because of the European policy that is coming, but also through this newly created community we have in the project, if that is able to develop, and from two sides, we want the national level to enable them and to give them what is necessary to do capacity building. Outside of that, also link them to what funding opportunities are there, or what is the efficiency you will gain, justifying for policymakers the the resources they would need to put in. And this is one of the very interesting things, I think, excavating this efficiency, also like was mentioned, between research performing and research funding organizations, which is a very nice synergy and efficiency there when you get it right, but just across the board. So how do we make that case that this is really something that countries can benefit from? And it really, if you look at it, in the grand scheme of things, the investment needed to get to quite a nice level is actually not that much, because you've got volunteering people, interested people, like here in the room, but like in many rooms across Europe, you've got them. You just need to be able to incentivize them a little bit, maybe give them a little bit of funding to travel and so on. And already quite within the country, even quite a lot of things can happen with a very low budget.
Mm-hmm.
I think beyond the challenge, one of the selling points can be this idea that these kind of modules, they give you a common ground, a common understanding what is this role, not only for the young students in the bachelor's, but also for organizations. So it's a matter of, giving the common ground so that we can build on the capacity of the organization. So I don't know how this idea can be used to overcome this challenge of, getting more users. Just a thought.
No, actually, but it corresponds very much to our findings that it supported the clarification of the rules and the understanding. So yeah, somehow it can be a nice argument as well. But thanks as well for raising the other aspect. Probably if we just focus more on the mentorship program, because now we more or less talked about the foRMAtion module, the materials, and all the everything which is available with that regard. What about the mentorship? It has been already raised that even if it's kind of free of charge things, it needs investment, it needs the time of people. So how do you see, how would you recommend it to research performing organizations, or how would you promote it to join our alliances and host the students who are interested?
Well, I think the mentorship program is really a very, very important module of this training, because I mean, it's already mentioned. Even though the training is very important, but learning by doing is also very important as a research manager. And the mentorship program gives the students the opportunity to really know how it works in real life, and this is very, very important. What I think is a challenge is that mentorship program is very needs a lot of resources, needs a lot of time for the mentors. I think for the mentees, it's quite clear they see the advantage and it's easy to attract them. But how to attract the mentors, and it's very time consuming. It's usually coming up of the daily duties you have. Even though it's a very, very good investment for the futures, but for the everyday work life, it is really difficult to implement. And I wonder if there's a chance, but this is also, I mean, this is for the organizations which are offering the mentoring, how to give incentives to the mentors, that they will really find the time to train the mentees and to take care of them and to show them their everyday work. And I think this is a challenge, and it would be good to that the organizations really understand that this is a good investment, and that they really put efforts in giving people the time to take care of the mentorship.
Yeah, very crucial point, Martha.
So kind of building on your challenge, I'm kind of thinking about, all this reform of the research assessment, that we say that researchers have to be evaluated according to the contributions they make. And one of the contributions is to educate their peers and is to mentoring their peers. So they will only mentor and educate if they are well evaluated and if this contributes to the progress of their career. I don't see any difference here in the room. So if you are a research manager, part of your evaluation should be, how do you ensure that your knowledge does not stay only on you, but it is passed to your organization. So the day you leave, because we eventually leave our organizations, the knowledge stays there, right? And it's about our values, it's about our moral obligation to do these kind of things. Practically speaking, if we don't evaluate positively this type of activities, it will be very difficult to happen in a sustainable way. Right.
Yes. I think mentorship is hugely valuable and great work on that. And one of the things I can add maybe, just this person-to-person interaction between mentor and mentee is also very rewarding for the mentor, in the sense that you get questions that you don't get sort of out of the box or unbiased questions by your system or by your direct environment, and the personal connection there and reflecting on your work in that way, and also indeed setting up the next generation in a way, but also creating a network for yourself of upcoming people is interesting. Having said that, if you've got a very busy job, like you said, and you think, okay, I'm gonna have to put 2 hours on top each week, that can be very difficult. So yeah.
No, of course, funding is always a better option. If you would like to have, let's say, the best mentors, and you would like to ensure a proper level of commitment, or you make it as a part of, let's say, job description, as I think that scientists usually are doing mentoring, and also research administrators and managers, they are providing a lot of tutoring to newcomers or to the younger generation. But of course, it depends on the level of expected work in this regard. Also, of the interest of the institution to, let's say, to promote and to create the next generation of managers. Yes.
Well, answering to you, I think this is what I meant when I said this is a question to the organization, because the organization makes a job description, and putting some time apart for that task would be helpful. Another thing which came to my mind, well, I have run through a mentorship program myself as a mentee, and I realized that most of the mentors of this program, was also very time intensive for the mentors, but most of them, they were mentees before. And the students of this program are the research manager of the future. So it should be also part of the program, of the training, to keep them in mind. Okay, if you go to your job, please keep in mind how valuable this mentorship was for you, and please offer your time to the students of the future to become a mentor.
I was thinking about something, a little bit of another challenge that I think it would be worthwhile considering, which is the unintended negative impact that our action might have. We always think about the positive impact, but I think it's really important. And here, and in a mentorship, I think that we should think also about some kind of quality check in a way. Because if we are going to rely solely on each individual vision of what is mentoring, it could be, and I'm thinking also, for example, about personal relationships. How do you nurture the right or the respectful ways of interacting, and we don't kind of perpetuate ways of working that might not be according to our values.
That's an important point, and very much. But once you do that, sort of the leanness of the process. So I find you mentor me, goes a bit out of the door, and it becomes more cumbersome, and more funding is needed. And indeed, I think it's very valuable, because otherwise you might get into bad situations, abusive situations, bringing forward practices, questionable practices that are there now. I mean, in how things are done. But once you add that layer to it, of course, you need experts, you need rules, you need appeal procedure, you need a committee to look at it, probably, which I'm definitely not saying I'm against, but that starts a whole machine, which makes then the question towards funding and low threshold, well, funding more pertinent, and low threshold takes that to higher threshold.
Actually, I think many important ideas were collected, which already connect us to the next program, which is basically the mentorship training. But I think just reflecting to the foRMAtion mentorship, well, I think we try to develop, try to take into consideration all these aspects. So what if it's biased and what if it's too much administered and too much processes within it, and this is what we want to bring to your attention in this training. So how to get prepared and how to ensure the quality and that it will really benefit not only the mentee but the mentor as well. But before going there, just the last question for the speakers is. Also can be connected to possible continuation of foRMAtion. So the question is whether do you see any relevance for a master's study program in research management in Europe? And if yes, how will it look like? What should be included? What shouldn't be included? So what is your idea about this? Who wants to start?
Okay, I'll take them to start. I think it should be there and it will be there. The question is, what is the road and what is the timeline? There are now masters in Germany, if I'm correct, which is maybe a little bit different than, well, everybody has their own definition, so not different in that sense. There were some attempts, I think, in Switzerland and the UK in Cardiff. The US has some. I think for the profession to become recognized and mature, it needs to have that. So we're definitely moving there, and I see this also as a step towards thought leadership, towards that having modules in the first place. Also, if you want to come to recognition, what are you as a profession? What's the definition? And where can you go to learn? And if it's only on-the-job training, if it's only provided community-based, then how can you tell policymakers that it is a profession, or how can you see it as a profession? So I definitely, the thing I am thinking towards, and I think we are working towards at IARMA also, is that pretty much every country would have, or big countries, multiple masters in research management down the road. I think that's where this is leading, looking for the need for our profession, for it to professionalize, for it to be recognized. That is where it must end up. What that concretely look like, I'm not the best expert maybe to say all of the small things there, but that's definitely where I think we will go and should go.
Well, I think yeah, a standalone training would be useful. To give you an example of what we are already doing is, of course, we as a research funding organization, we have certain requirements also on administrative offices in my agency, and we are working together with the University of Applied Science to build up courses on research managers and administration, with a focus on administration and focus on financial issues. So this is something I could also think of to the level of research managers in the more scientific field and not only on the administrative field. But I still think we need both. So we need a standalone training, but I still believe that it is of an advantage that when someone comes to a research manager, that he or she has done research themselves and that they know how a research project works from the perspective of the researchers. And so I was a researcher before I entered this agency, and I still find it very valuable that I can really understand what are the researchers' needs and what are the difficulties in the university, or what do we think about. So this is also added value. So I think at least in my agencies, we need both. So we need the experts, but we need also people coming from another world and knowing also the other world, and so that they can give better advice.
Yes, I think the best teams are always made up of people who are coming in from a different direction, that maybe are closer to the research, that are closer to the financials, that are closer to organizational management, that are closer to finance, project management, and so on. So definitely, it's a coming together, and that's also what makes it, in a sense, difficult, because it's one research management with a lot of subcategories, but then also other profiles flowing into it, which is one of the big challenges we have with the definition and the career path and so on.
I was kind of thinking the other way around. I mean, I fully agree with both of you, and I was thinking one of the added value of a standalone master in research management would also be what it would bring to the research in research management in terms of these students would start producing evidence based on research management, and we should not, diminish the value of this.
So I think that it will be good to have something like this, but there are a lot of open questions, and I think that after the Action 17 will pass a threshold, this should be in the roadmap included. I think this idea.
We will work on that. Thank you very much for sharing all these very triggering thoughts. I think this is a very good basis for the continuation and to see what we can do for the recognition of the profession, for raising awareness, and to developing educational and training opportunities. I'm just wondering whether there are any questions in the audience. Yes, Borana. Okay, we have these two questions and no more, sorry. Because my thought.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I left within 3 minutes and blame on the train.
Thank you. Borana Tarai, Head of European Projects at the IRMA. My question is related to the discussion of the importance of involving policymakers. Sorry, my voice is strange here. Now I think it's the right distance, right? We heard from Steen also this morning about supporting Action 17 and having on board policymakers at national level, at European level. So, and we also touched upon actually during the panel discussion. But I would like to ask the panelists once more to emphasize why is it so important to have policymakers invest in the research management initiatives, and in particular, what are the risks if they do not do it?
Yes, let's see the second question. Sorry, and then we will speak some answers so that they have time to leave.
Just because maybe you want to join the questions. Okay, my question tried to be simple. It may seem out of topic, but have you tried to engage trade unions or professional associations within this broader discussion? I say this because in other examples, we know that trade unions are key actors in the development of policy, and also some professional associations are being created when the trade unions don't have space for categories or professions such as ours, which kind of a little bit a hybrid between publics and private. So I'm just curious if you have tried to engage with these actors, and I would like to hear the ideas and the experiences of the panel if they have ever engaged in this kind of with these kind of actors, and if it would be an interesting or not idea. Just as
We let Martha go, not to miss the train, but if you want to reply.
No, I just replied. You can hear me, right? I just replied to the first question. I mean, it's a very good idea to think about the risks of not involving policymakers, and it's just about precarity, lack of capacity building, lack of conditions to develop the work of research managers that are key for the strength of research and innovation. So I don't see a way why I mean, we really have to engage the policymakers, because this is getting a little bit unsustainable. And I'm really sorry, but I really have to leave.
Thank you very much, Martha, and have a safe trip back home. So let's see other experts.
Well, I would like also to repeat, to respond to the question on how to attract policymakers to invest into research managers, because well, when doing policy in research or in any other fields, it's always theory. So politics are sitting on a round table and discussing, okay, this is what we can do. And they have maybe brilliant ideas and brilliant strategies most of the time. And then it comes to application. I mean, it needs to be implemented. The ideas needs to be implemented. And when it's to research policy, it could not be implemented without research managers. So how to do it? There is the policy on one side, there are the researchers on one side, but there's a gap in between, and this gap must be filled or is already filled by research managers, and this is absolutely needed for the whole system. Otherwise, it would not work.
I have a practical example of that, although a bit abstract in a way. I think the European Commission is probably a world champion in stakeholder consultation. It is super important to them. They really are emphasizing this and working at this in the best way possible. Now, if you look at it from their side, and also very much in the past, because they've got great policy here coming, but the situation is that, okay, they're looking to all of the stakeholders, private, governments, academic sector, okay, universities, pick only universities. Who do you speak to? You speak to the leadership. You speak to LERU, for example, representing leadership of a number of organizations. You speak to the researchers themselves, to the technology platforms, and you do this big consultation, and you're ready to launch your new rules, your new framework program, and so on. And some of the stuff doesn't work because this gap that was there was not always filled, because there is a gap in that practical application of the rules towards research, the processes, where research managers play a crucial role, which is not always taken into account. And I've seen this, and this was my practical example also, where such a consultation was done, and the Commission did its utmost to make it in line with what universities were asking, and then it was coming to the universities back, and they were saying, okay, we can't work with this, this doesn't work. It's not this what I'm concretely talking about, but personnel costs in Horizon Europe, time sheeting, internal invoicing, and so on, are good examples of something in that direction. So we need to also, be consulted in that, or show what the importance there is, because this is a huge consultation. Leading into how European research is moving forward, the framework condition, the framework program, and it not working in some cases, or needing to be adjusted in some cases, a constantly ongoing discussion on the annotated model grant agreement and when it can be there. And there we have a crucial role to play, and that gap is super important. But I was going back to saying they do great stakeholder consultation, but it's already doing all of that, and then there's the research managers, and then there's other elements to consider.
Yeah, I think that policymakers should understand that research management is an inherent part of a well-functioning R&D system, and the research managers and everything which is linked with developing research managers and administrators should be part of the human resources policy for research or in science and technology. So this is, you can not, this is, I think, axiomatic in my opinion.
The trade unions?
Yeah.
I'll try to say something about the trade union question. So the trade unions and professional associations. So we are the professional association in Europe, in a sense. There's national ones. Trade unions and trade federations are a difficult proposition in a way, because a lot of the trade unions also don't have this niche, or don't fully understand it, or don't fully buy into it. Also, traditionally, in a lot of countries, the trade unions within universities or academic sector are much weaker than in other sectors for a variety of reasons. But actually, sort of the reverse happened when one of the countries in Europe was starting a professional association. They were blocked actually by their policymakers, because they were thinking they were making an additional union. They think, hold on, there's unions enough, we don't need another one in this case, and they're trying to block the national association, which is sort of the interesting reverse.
Yeah. Actually, I just can confirm that the maturity level and the operation level of trade unions across Europe are very much diverse. And the far we go to the east, they are the weak. So it's very hard to find any possible field for cooperation with them. So this is where I think there is a huge gap that can be filled by the national associations as such. Well, I would close the discussion, which was really fruitful, and thank you very much for all the ideas and recommendations and the very nice aspects. I think there is a lot to take home with us. So thanks a lot again for our speakers. And of course, for the audience, thanks a lot for being here with us, and I hope that it was worth to come here and stay in touch. You know all our availabilities and contact details. So feel free to get back to us if you have any further questions or if you feel the spirit to join to our alliances. But